So for those of you who didn't see, a little bit ago, I actually made an update video talking about the potential 2025 AFL Pick 1 players. And again, in that, I went over about 4 or 5 of them on who could obviously contend for it. Again, I highly recommend you guys going and checking out that video. It should have been uploaded a little bit before this one. All will be in the Everything AFL video playlist in the description. But of course, one thing I actually mentioned in that video is who I think is most likely to be pick 1 and the player I think a lot of teams are going to be looking at. Of course, that does happen to be the South Australian, oh, what the hell, we nearly just had a freaking brain aneurysm trying to say South Australian. The South Australian product, Dyson Sharp, who was a really interesting guy, again, 188 centimeters out of SA. Of course, his player description says he's a midfielder, saying that Sharp is a Goliath in the clinches. At home, when the going gets tough and the game enters its chaos phase, he's worked for South Australia as a bottom ager, rivaled the likes of Sid Draper and Ben Camporelli, and he looked adept against senior bodies in the step up to SANFL level. Sharp doesn't get moved off the ball, lays crunching tackles, and wields a damaging kick on the outside of stoppages. So we got to remember as well, just reading that, Dyson Sharp being, compared to guys who were 18 at the time and he was 17 is of course a pretty crazy thing. Again, I think as the time is going on, he's truly more and more kind of distancing himself from the pack. Again, there are guys who continue to come out who are going to be contending for this pick. Don't get me wrong. Again, there's a guy by the name of Cooper Duff Tytler who I didn't even talk about in that projected number 1 video that has all of a sudden come over the last week into being in the projected pick 1 category, and he's of course a really talented 199 centimeter ruckman. But Dyson Sharp is kind of fitting that Sam Lawler, Harley Reid type of mold where the guy is so versatile, but the difference is of course Sam Lawler and Harley Reid were massive big bodied inside midfielders who could go forward. It seems like at this time Dyson Sharp is actually a big bodied midfielder who can actually go play as a halfback and on the wing. So a little bit different on the versatile aspect than what Lawler and Harley Reid were, and of course Cam Rayner, Horn Francis, and the OG Dustin Martin before himself. Again, there is another description here, and this one actually being by the AFL website, that says that Sharp plays with a hard edge that you don't often see for a prospect his age. It is why late in the year, he wasn't daunted by stepping up to play in SANFL league level with Central District, where he performed well in 3 finals. The big-bodied midfielder averaged 27 disposals, 8 tackles, and 7 clearances at under 18 level for Centrals this season, and will be pushing to continue his trajectory to be an early, pick next year. Again, as I said, a lot of these pages don't actually mention the goals that he kicks, because when they're talking about him as a big-bodied midfielder, you usually would expect that. Like all the big-bodied midfielders who push forward usually will have those goals. But the thing is, he's not necessarily like that. He's actually a little bit different and kind of is like, I would compare him more to what Patrick Dangerfield was at the start of his career, where I believe, Dangerfield played a lot of wing. He played a bit off the halfback as well. Of course, trying to just find his mark in the AFL, and then he obviously became a really good inside midfielder who later on would go on to push forward and do what Dusty would have, of course, do for many, many years. Again, Sharp is just interesting because he's different. He's different like that, where he doesn't push forward or so more. He actually plays on the wing and the halfback. Again, really cool to see that he's actually been training with the Adelaide Crows over this off-season to instantly get an AFL feel. He's also been training with a South Australian product in Matt Leray, with it being said that Central District's products Matt Leray and Dyson Sharp have been taking part in the Crows pre-season training sessions, giving them an inside look at life as an AFL player. Leray and Sharp were also working closely with Crows coaches, players and staff as well as joining in conditioning and recovery sessions to gain a deeper understanding of what is required at the top level ahead of their draft campaigns. Sharp, a strongly built utility, featured with Central's league team last year, including in the Bulldogs qualifying semi and preliminary finals. He said it was great to share the experience with the Central District teammate and have gained valuable insights into what life as an AFL club looked like. Matt and I have been joining in on the training sessions. We're learning about tactics and recovery methods. We've also been in a couple of education sessions and a bit of player development stuff with the 1st to 4 year players, the Year 12 Xavier College students said. We've just been exposed to all the in and outs on AFL Live. It's been so good, I've learned a lot of new things and I've had a lot of fun. The thing that impressed me the most has been the training standard. You never really know until you've done it. Being out there from the main sessions, you get to see how quickly the ball moves. You've got players thinking 2 steps ahead and everyone's knowledge has been really impressive. Sharp said that he tries to model his game off the Crows captain Jordan Dawson and had lent on the captain during his time at the club. I've tried to get around everyone and get some tips of as many players as I can and ask as many questions as I can, Sharp said. I tend to play a little bit off the half-back line, on the wing, and I go up forward every now and then. So he's one of the players I was trying to get the most out of. To be given an opportunity is pretty surreal, to be honest. I've come into this ready to learn new things and be a sponge, trying to get everything out of it, and I'm getting a good look at what life could possibly look like for me. Again, I actually like that comparison as well, and that he's been trying to train with Jordan Dawson, because Jordan Dawson, as we know, started off as a half-back who became an inside midfielder. He's also pushed a lot, to being a half-forward as of recent years. And even though he doesn't play on the wing, he obviously has a really great two-way running that goes up and down that line, which I think Dyson Sharp is very much going to implement. You can also tell that this guy has a great head on his shoulders. The way he just spoke right there already shows that he seems to be really mature for his age and is already ready to learn and take the next steps onto being an AFL player. Again, there will be some concerns with Dyson Sharp, right? And the unfortunate thing for him is that it will be more about his concerns on where he wants to play his footy than is he actually good enough for pick 1. And what I mean by that is clubs are absolutely scared. They are scared that a player like Dyson Sharp, who's from South Australia, could go pick 1 and of course just leave straight away, just with like Horn Francis. Again, clubs don't have any problem taking Victorian players at pick 1, Western Australian players at pick 1, Queensland, New South Wales, usually all that stuff. There's never a problem. But as we know, in the last couple years, a lot of teams have been very hesitant on selecting and taking South Australian players due to the fact that, as we know, Port Adelaide and Adelaide have been notoriously known after the last couple years to do some very weird things and actually go and talk to players and their managers just months after they've been drafted. Again, it was confirmed that Port Adelaide had spoken to Horn Francis 3 months after he was drafted with North Melbourne at pick 1. And even though I think Port have still kind of denied this, it had been confirmed by like many good and renowned reporters. It was also, I believe, confirmed by a bunch of reporters that they quickly spoke to Joe Richards after his first couple of games. Again, many AFL teams have called for the AFL to look into this and, have much more deeper tampering rules like the NBA. But as we know, the AFL is yet to do that. And I think if a situation where Dyson Sharp was to go pick 1 and all of a sudden he's requesting a trade back to Adelaide straight away were to happen, I think they will be looking into that because, again, notoriously at the moment, it has been Port and, the South Australian teams and what's been going on there who have been really trying to continuously get players out of their clubs very, very early on. Look, I mean, it's worked for them. And if there are no tampering rules about it, it's like, well, why wouldn't they try? It makes all the sense for them to do it. So it's not even their fault. But yeah, things could look a little bit different. And it's going to be one of the reasons why Dyson Sharp might not go pick 1 is because if a team like Richmond or West Coast, probably less likely them, and more specifically a team like North Melbourne, a much, you know, less of a team, a much like smaller team is kind of what I want to say in terms of fan bases, popularity in the media, etc., who have already kind of been down that road when they had it happen with them and Horn Francis. They are probably going to look past Dyson Sharp, and they're not going to want that to happen again. And look, I think a team like Richmond and West Coast would for sure back themselves in, because they are the two of the biggest teams in the whole entire competition, and West Coast did it with Harley Reid, and Richmond will do it with absolutely anyone. So I don't think those teams would shy away from it. But yeah, a team like North might. The only thing is, though, is that Port Adelaide actually don't own their first round pick this year. So the only way he could maybe, you know, end up at South Australian club throughout this year's draft, and if one of those teams wants to try and trade up, is if Adelaide maybe move heaven on earth to try and trade up to get him, which, who knows, if a team like Richmond had like pick 2 or 3, and that's where Dyson Sharp was going to go, Adelaide had pick 10 and they offered that and their future first and even more on top. Yeah, I definitely could see maybe one of them considering it, but you really do truly never know. So this is going to be interesting to see how this all does go and unfold. Dyson Sharp, I think, is currently the pick 1 favorite, and he looks absolutely insane. We'll have to wait and see how this unfolds. Again, please don't forget to make sure to leave a like on this video to let me know you guys enjoy it. Subscribe to the channel for the latest AFL content and news, and of course subscribe to my gaming channel if you haven't already, which will all be getting linked in the description down below. And of course, comment your thoughts and opinions on Dyson Sharp and whether or not you think he'll go pick 1. But yeah, as I was saying, please make sure to leave a like, subscribe, and comment, and I'll be seeing you guys next time. Goodbye.